Ron Howard's journey through Hollywood is far from a fairy tale. Born into a world of constant motion and studio lights, Howard's path was never one of ease or unbroken success. He was thrust into the world of acting as a child, his parents, both working actors, moving from Oklahoma to California when he was just a baby. By the time he was 18 months old, he was already on film sets, long before he could even speak full sentences. His formative years were spent not in playgrounds or with friends, but in crowded trailers and the harsh, adult-dominated world of Hollywood. Even though he came from a family of actors, his early life was far from typical. He had no chance to grow up in the peaceful, carefree environment that most children experienced. Instead, Ron's world was shaped by the overwhelming presence of the industry, an industry that often consumed the innocence of its young stars. The burden of childhood stardom. By the time he was 6 years old, Ron Howard had already gained fame as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. The love from audiences was immediate, and millions of families embraced him as their own. However, behind that smile lay a profound loneliness that Ron could not escape. His life was isolated from the normal experiences of a child. He wasn't able to make friends at school or play sports like other kids his age. Instead, his days were spent on set, surrounded by adults, learning lessons no child should have to learn. The tough world of Hollywood, with its crew members who smoked heavily, harsh language, and sometimes inappropriate behavior, was a stark contrast to the childhood Ron deserved. The facade of fame gave him comfort, but it came with the cost of his early years. Loneliness amidst fame. Although millions of fans adored him, Ron's life was a lonely one. Fame brought him work and security, but it also stole away the joys of a typical childhood. There were no weekend games or carefree moments spent with friends. Instead, Ron's companions were his fellow child stars who, like him, lived under the scrutiny of the public eye. His school days were filled with taunts from classmates who mocked him for his role as Opie. He didn't fit in and became an easy target for ridicule. One of his most painful memories was a public humiliation when he wet his pants in front of his classmates. The scars of that moment would linger throughout his life. Fame, while providing a sense of security, also pushed Ron further away from normalcy, turning his formative years into a whirlwind of work and public expectation. A childhood trapped in Hollywood's grip. As Ron grew older, his fame only seemed to solidify, but the growing pressure to live up to the image of Opie Taylor weighed heavily on him. At 13, he was already stuck in a cycle where his identity was defined by a role he couldn't escape. He yearned to be seen as more than just the sweet, innocent boy from The Andy Griffith Show, but Hollywood wouldn't let him go. Casting directors were eager to meet him, but dismissed him just as quickly, finding him too recognizable or too Opie. The industry, it seemed, had already made its decision about who Ron Howard was, and it wasn't allowing him to grow beyond it. A failed attempt at breaking away with the TV show The Monroes only deepened his sense of being trapped. The cancellation of the show after just 26 episodes felt like confirmation that he would always be stuck in the past. The hidden cost of success. Despite the accolades and successes, Ron Howard's personal life was far from peaceful. As his career grew, so did the pressure. His relentless work ethic, fueled by a fear of being remembered only for his early roles, consumed him. His days stretched into 16-hour marathons and his home life began to suffer. He would return home after long days on set to find his children already asleep and his wife, Cheryl, waiting for him in silence. The pattern of long workdays and short nights took a toll on his marriage and family life. For all his professional success, Ron was beginning to realize that his fame came with a price, one that he was only beginning to understand as he approached the peak of his career. The pain of personal loss. By the mid-1990s, Ron Howard had reached the pinnacle of his career with Apollo 13, a film that earned over $350 million and garnered 9 Academy Award nominations. But while his professional life was flourishing, his personal life was not. In 2000, Ron lost his mother, Jean, whose health had been failing for some time. The pain of losing her was profound, and it forced Ron to confront the reality of what fame had taken from him. He had spent so many years building his career that he had neglected the people who had supported him from the very beginning. His mother had always been there, offering quiet encouragement and standing by his side through the difficult years. Her passing left a hole in his heart that no amount of fame or success could fill. Dealing with family, tragedy, In addition to the loss of his mother, Ron faced another devastating challenge with his brother Clint's struggles with addiction. Clint, who had always looked up to Ron, began to spiral into darkness, and Ron, despite his fame and success, felt powerless to help. The guilt and frustration Ron felt as he watched his brother battle addiction were unbearable. Ron believed that if he just worked harder or earned more, he could save Clint from his demons. But addiction doesn't care about money or accolades, and Clint's struggle continued. Ron's attempt to save his brother, despite his best efforts, reminded him that there are some things in life that no amount of success can fix. The loss of Cindy Williams and reflections on life. In early 2023, Ron Howard received the devastating news that his former American Graffiti co-star Cindy Williams had passed away suddenly. The loss of Cindy, who had been a close friend and source of support during the early years of fame, hit Ron harder than he expected. Cindy's death reminded him of the fleeting nature of life and the importance of cherishing the relationships we have while we can. As he remembered her infectious laugh and the comfort her presence had provided during difficult times, Ron felt a deep sense of loss. The grief of losing Cindy added to the weight of all the other losses he had experienced throughout his life, making him realize that the greatest luxury was not success or wealth, but the peace that comes from knowing you've lived a life full of love, giving, and purpose. A life of legacy and gratitude. Now, at 71, Ron Howard's life is quieter and more reflective than ever. Having survived personal and professional storms, he stands as a testament to resilience. With a net worth of nearly $200 million, Ron's wealth is the result of decades of hard work, not just as an actor, but as a director and producer. His career has been defined by his commitment to his craft, but it is his personal life, his wife Cheryl, their children and their grandchildren, that holds the most meaning. Ron has learned that success is not measured by accolades or money, but by the love and connections we build with those closest to us. His story serves as a reminder that, despite the hardships, persistence and love are what truly define greatness.